Hello, everyone. This is Brian Blay from Crowdwise, an online community for startup investors and founders in equity crowdfunding, helping you to bring your skills to the next level. Now, normally we interview companies and founders who are raising capital. Today's going to be a little bit different. I'm actually joined here by Joe, co-founder and CEO of Mythic Markets. Joe is going to be telling us more about his platform, some of the different alternative investing opportunities available to investors, and what Mythic Markets is all about. Now, Mythic Markets is a platform that basically lets you invest in pop culture collectibles like trading cards, comics, and memorabilia. So let's hear a little bit more from you, Joe. First off, thank you for joining us. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about Mythic Markets and how you got into what you're doing today?
For sure. You pretty much nailed the whole pitch in your intro. But yeah, so we turn high value collectibles, as you mentioned, like vintage comics, collectible cards, fantasy art, and esports teams into essentially publicly traded companies where anybody can invest in shares of the things that they love. And so that we're starting out with sort of pop culture and also enabling trading pretty soon. So our latest offering is, in Magic the Gathering, which is the world's first collectible card game. It's for these sealed booster boxes from 1994, which is sort of the beginning of, the growth of the game. And our last asset was also in Magic the Gathering. It was a Black Lotus card that was $90,000. So
I'm actually aware of what that means, what a Black Lotus is from back in my Magic the Gathering days. That's interesting.
they've increased a little bit in price.
Yeah.
I think one offline sold for about 900,000, but
Wow.
yeah.
So, like Magic the Gathering cards, this is probably not something the typical investor who might be looking to diversify would be thinking about, right? So, can you maybe talk about what are, some of the potential for investing in these types of different assets like, comics and trading cards and that sort of thing?
Definitely. I guess like as a primer, a lot of today's investors and engineers and founders and frankly just people with capacity started off as sort of geeks growing up. And so, people grew up with this stuff, which has, really been skyrocketing in value. And sort of this idea of being a geek didn't used to be cool and sort of now kind of is, especially as more and more people become aware of these fandoms. So comic books, for instance, the original Wonder Woman was a, $10,000 book until the movie came out, and suddenly that became $1 million book when you had a global community of fans that became fans of Wonder Woman all of a sudden. And so a lot of this resurgence in comics in pop culture has been because of the popularity of the superhero film genre. And so, just over the years, like, comics have been, 50, 60, 70 years. Magic has been, the last 27 years. And, Pokemon is the, number one franchise ever in terms of like its popularity and gross sales. And so, this has really given rise to the value of this stuff just skyrocketing and frankly putting it out of the reach of most people. And so, we're turning these collectibles into investments, and allowing anybody to invest in this stuff. One other thing I would say too is that, like, for instance, Magic is a good example of this, where these are trading cards and they have different value, and the people that love this stuff recognize that, and are essentially traded like unregistered securities, like stock today. And so, we're sort of translating that, at that higher level where people are doing this at the, the 1,000, 10,000, 50, $100,000 range, whereas people are accustomed to doing that like the $10 to $100 range today.
Got it. So maybe you could walk us through an example of how something would get offered on your platform. What's that look like today? Who kind of vets these things? How do you decide on what gets listed, and what's that process look like?
Definitely. So maybe I'll start off with like sort of how we choose and work our way through this process. So there is a sort of a pretty well-known universe of the types of things that are sort of investment grade. And so, there's things like the Black Lotus, or like, grails in the community like Amazing Fantasy 15, Action Comics 1. That happens to be a $5 or $6 million book, and uh, and so we source these collectibles. These are, as I mentioned, grails in the community. We acquire them, and then we create a company that exists solely to own that one thing. And so, and then that company is broken into shares, securitized with the SEC through Reg A plus, and we hold basically an IPO for that thing. And then downstream, we hope to enable trading of those securities as well. But these are actual stocks. They are not crypto, not blockchain, not tokens. They are real securities.
Now, are these shares, if you don't mind me asking, and it may differ from each offering, but are they shares in an LLC or these C corporations? Because I know there's different tax implications, right, depending on how that entity is structured.
So these are specifically what are called a Series LLC. So these are Delaware companies, and we hold the assets in our custody, and so those are kept in our vault.
Got it. And I think that's similar to some other platforms, where you invest in art or something like that. I think they do something similar to that.
Yeah.
So let's say, all right, you've kind of gone and set up this entity. What's the next step? Like, where do you store these things once they're purchased by investors? Like, who kind of manages that in terms of, the maintenance, if there is any, or like storage fees? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, keep all the assets in our custody. Those are kept in our vault in Oregon. Oregon was chosen because it's a sales and use tax-free state. And so, that's beneficial for the shareholders. Maintenance is very, limited ultimately, because this stuff is generally like small and flat. For instance, a slabbed card or comic book is tiny. And so there's really very little overhead. All this stuff is insured. And yeah, I mean, it's very low maintenance for the most part.
Okay. And then let's say whatever a certain number of years has passed, 5, 10, 15, 20, who decides, when this gets sold, if it gets sold, how does it get sold? What's that logistics going to look like?
For sure. So first of all, we do take this stuff on the road. We have pop-ups at various shows. We were hoping to be at Comic-Con this year, for instance. That isn't happening anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, we intend to have our own sort of permanent sort of gallery space, one day when we are allowed to go back outside. And so in terms of like deciding, what happens with this stuff, ultimately Mythic Markets, as the manager of the collection, makes these decisions. However, we do take sentiment from the shareholders on what to do. So liquidity, I think, is sort of the natural question that comes after that, which is, ultimately, I think most people will be, getting liquidity through trading. But if somebody were to come and want to take essentially a public company private in like a takeover offer, there would be probably some premium that's attached to that where the investors are made whole. And we are co-investors in every asset, so we act, in the best interest of the shareholders.
Got it. Okay. And I think that explains things pretty well from an investor perspective. If I'm someone who has one of these collectibles, do I have the opportunity to kind of bring that to you and present it? And can I kind of sell my assets that way to investors, or what does it look like from the other side of the marketplace?
Absolutely. So, if you've got something that's, rare and something that people really want, that's something that we can certainly source and actually already do source from the community. A great example would be, art, for instance. We have one piece that came from the community, which is the giant growth art, and also have a pipeline of about $15 million of art that's sort of ready to securitize. And these pieces come from various fandoms, comics, and Magic the Gathering original art as well.
Got it. Okay. And are there, I mean, can you talk anything about in terms of the fees, or does that really depend on the type of item being offered or sold?
In general, so each of the offerings has a nominal sort of sourcing fee attached to it. That's historically been about 2 to 3%, and that covers some of the costs. But it is free to invest and take part in the platform. And our business model primarily revolves around a premium product that we intend to offer in the future, kind of similar to Robinhood Gold.
Ah, got it. Are you interested in elaborating kind of in some of that future vision if you can? Or
Sure.
where you're seeing the platform to evolve?
For sure. So we don't intend to take any kind of fees on trading or anything like that. We also are co-investors, as I mentioned, and so there's the potential for gains there. But we intend to offer a premium subscription product that entitles the subscriber to things like pro trading tools, early access to the IPOs. As more and more people come onto the platform, these will start to turn more quickly. And so we'd like to offer, sort of early investing hours for those things. This will also include opportunities to buy exclusive collectibles directly through us. And so as a collector of rare pop final figurines,
Mhm.
some of these things are only available through Comic-Con and certain sources. And so we've already had some of these conversations with these producers to be the exclusive outlet for some of these things. And then finally, like fan club experiences, being able to experience the collection and see it, and other cool privileges like that.
Awesome. Now, what about, I got to imagine in kind of the collectibles space, and when you have things like trading cards or other things like that, that forgery or fakes are kind of a concern. Do you guys have any process for kind of vetting the authenticity of the objects that you're offering, and what's that process?
Definitely. So there are third-party services that grade and authenticate and ultimately slab some of these collectibles. Slabbing being that they are put into a tamper-proof plastic case. In order to get the collectible out of those cases, the case itself has to be destroyed. And so a lot of the value actually does come in that authentication and grading process. And so, besides that, once we acquire these collectibles, we do, essentially, take them through like the whole rigmarole of like, the jeweler's loop and various tests and so forth to make sure that this stuff is authentic.
Awesome. That helps a lot. Um, I guess in terms of some of the things we've mentioned, like the different types of offerings that you might have, cards, books, are there other ones that we maybe haven't touched on that you find are interesting in the niche? Or
For sure. So, some of the things that we already have up there are like the original art, for instance. So, fantasy art is also included in that, and those are really exciting because they are, the one of ones. And so, for instance, you mentioned that you're familiar with the Black Lotus. One of our partners, has the original art for the Black Lotus. So, if you thought that 90 to $900,000 for the card was valuable, the art is substantially more than that. Um, so that's another exciting one. Esports is a vertical that we intend to expand into, and are working on our first public offering as well, and in bringing that together. The whole sort of quarantining and sort of global shutdown has delayed some of that, but we're excited to bring that to market.
interesting. Can you talk maybe a little bit more about the esports vertical and what you're looking to do there? I'm trying to think how that fits into kind of your model that we've discussed.
Exactly. So you would be owning equity in the team.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, where's the potential payoff for the investors in that? Is it
Right. So it depends on the offerings ultimately. So the structure may include dividends as part of the team's earnings, or it may just be straight up equity in the team. Its value continues to trade and increase based on trading activity or additional investment and so forth.
got it? Now, when you mentioned trading and stuff as well, is the intent that you're going to have a type of secondary market or something else where people could maybe exchange their shares that they hold in these investments?
That's correct. So, we are working with a broker-dealer that recently got their alternative trading system approved,
Yep.
and that's something that we're working to build in as quickly as possible so that we can provide that liquidity opportunity for the shareholders.
Awesome. Good to know. Can you maybe talk a little bit more just about your team? So you, who else is on your team that's kind of helping Mythic Markets, become what it is?
For sure. So we are a team of 9 currently. So it's myself. I guess the team is really made up of a pretty close knit group of friends who have known each other for anywhere between um, the core has known each other anywhere between like 5 and 20 years. And so, our founding team, including our CTO and head of product and so forth, and actually, uh, a couple of our founding engineers have all known each other, forever, whether it was going to college together, or growing up together. And so, it's just been kind of one of these cool things where, we get to work with our friends, not that we get to see them much these days, but
Right.
we, used to hang out like all the time outside the office, and get together on weekends and play poker and just kind of, yeah, hang out. And so it's been super fun to be able to work with our friends. And then outside of that, everybody has come through the team through somebody knew somebody else. And so we've kept it pretty close knit to date. And that's where we found our best uh, you know, been able to kind of maintain this relationship with people.
That sounds like a great, great team way to
I,
work.
I mean, a lot of it does come down to trust, right? Especially right now as we work remotely. And I think a major reason why it has worked as well as it has is because we've had that long time trust with each other uh, and know what each other is capable of, and just trust that everyone's aligned and getting stuff done.
Awesome. Now, I got to imagine too, one other potential concern that investors might have is that, I mean, in a sense, you guys are a startup yourselves. You're kind of building this right from the ground up. Hopefully, it would never happen. But if you guys, for whatever reason, went away in a couple of years, what do investors have to worry about in terms of their investments on the platform? Do those get liquidated? What is that kind of downside risk?
Yeah, so I mean, if something were to happen, the investors themselves are protected by the individual LLCs that they're investing in. So ultimately, the likelihood is that those would get liquidated in whether it's like an auction or private sale or whatever it happens to be, and made whole that way, and then paid out based on their pro rata ownership of each asset. And so that's sort of how we structured it to protect sort of uh, the investors from anything that happens with Mythic Markets Inc.
Got it. Okay. You've answered a lot of my questions, Joe. Before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to just share with people watching this video, or anything else we didn't talk about?
I mean, we recently launched our latest drop. It is the 1994 booster boxes that for the Magic people out there that may be familiar, that includes Antiquities, Revised, Legends, The Dark, and Fallen Empires, and that is 27.50 a share, $55,000 market cap, available now. As we record this, and yeah, I mean, we're really excited we're all fans ourselves. So, we just love geeking out over this stuff. And, frankly, when we were working together, in the office, we'd have a stream of whether it's like esports or, something going on in the background.
Awesome. I can definitely sense your passion.
Yeah, huge fan. Looking forward to getting back out there and playing. Even when it comes to Magic, paper Magic, been playing a lot of Arena, which is the online version. But I can't wait to see my friends again.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for your time today. I guess if anyone else wants to find out more, they can head over to your website, mythicmarkets.com. And thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.